In the rolling hills of ancient Shandong province, where the Yellow River winds through fertile plains, lies the birthplace of one of humanity's most influential historical texts. Here, over 2.5 millennia ago, a work was created that would forever change how we understand history, morality, and the art of governance. The Spring and Autumn Annals stands as one of the 5 classics of Chinese literature, a text so revered that it shaped the moral and intellectual foundation of an entire civilization. But this is not merely a chronicle of kings and battles. It is something far more profound, the world's first work of moral historiography. To understand the Spring and Autumn Annals, we must first journey back to the tumultuous period from which it takes its name, the Spring and Autumn period, 770 to 476 BCE. This was an era when the once mighty Zhou dynasty was crumbling, and the Middle Kingdom was fragmenting into competing states. The Spring and Autumn period was characterized by what we might call beautiful chaos. The old order was breaking down. The Zhou king still existed, but he had become largely ceremonial. Real power lay with the various feudal lords who were essentially independent rulers of their own territories. Among these warring states was Lu, a small but culturally significant kingdom. It was here, in this relatively minor principality, that our story truly begins. For Lu was the homeland of China's most famous sage, Kong Qiu, known to the world as Confucius. Born in 551 BCE into a world of political upheaval, Confucius witnessed firsthand the collapse of traditional authority. As a young man, he served in various governmental positions in Lu, but his true calling lay elsewhere, in education, philosophy, and the preservation of cultural memory. What made Confucius revolutionary was his belief that moral principles should govern historical narrative. He wasn't content to simply record what happened, he wanted to show what should have happened and, more importantly, why. Traditional Chinese sources credit Confucius with editing, if not authoring, the Spring and Autumn Annals. Working with the existing court records of Lu State, he crafted something unprecedented, a historical text that was simultaneously factual chronicle and moral instruction manual. The annals cover 242 years of history, from 722 to 481 BCE. But these are not the sweeping narratives we might expect from ancient histories. Instead, Confucius employed a radically different approach, one of deliberate brevity and calculated precision. In the spring, in the king's first month, the duke took office. So begins the Spring and Autumn Annals, with characteristic economy of language. Each entry is terse, factual, almost bureaucratic in its precision. Yet within this apparent simplicity lies extraordinary sophistication. Every single word in the Spring and Autumn Annals was chosen with deliberate purpose. The choice of verb, the order of names, even what was left unsaid, all carried moral weight. This wasn't just history, it was judgment. Consider this entry: the Duke of Song came to Lu. Simple enough. But compare it to, the Duke of Song fled to Lu. The single word change from came to fled transforms our understanding entirely. The first suggests a diplomatic visit, the second reveals political exile. This technique became known as the praise and blame system. Through subtle linguistic choices, Confucius could praise virtuous rulers and condemn tyrants without ever explicitly stating his moral judgments. The ethics were embedded in the very grammar of his history. The Spring and Autumn Annals might have remained an obscure historical curiosity were it not for the emergence of 3 crucial commentaries that unlocked its deeper meanings. These texts, the Zhuo Commentary, the Gongyang Commentary, and the Guliang Commentary, transformed the annals from a cryptic chronicle into a profound philosophical work. The most famous and extensive of these is the Zhuozhuan, or Zhuo Commentary, traditionally attributed to Zhuo Qiuming. Where the annals provided only skeletal facts, the Zhuo Commentary filled in the flesh, providing detailed narratives, dialogue, and context that brought the ancient world to vivid life. The Zhuo Commentary is remarkable because it functions almost like a historical novel. It gives us court intrigue, military strategies, romantic entanglements, and psychological insights into historical figures. It's as if someone took a dry chronology and turned it into a compelling drama. Through these commentaries, we learn of Duke Ling of Wei's obsession with cranes, which led him to neglect state affairs. We witness the tragic romance of Duke Ling of Chen and his brother's wife. We see the brilliant military tactics of Sun Tzu's contemporary strategists. But the true genius of the Spring and Autumn Annals lies not in its historical details, but in its moral framework. For Confucius, history was not a random sequence of events, but the unfolding of cosmic moral principles. Confucius believed in what we might call moral causation, the idea that virtuous actions lead to beneficial outcomes, while immoral behavior inevitably results in disaster. The Spring and Autumn Annals demonstrates this principle through historical example. When a ruler honored his ancestors and treated his subjects justly, his state prospered. When he indulged in luxury and ignored his duties, rebellions and invasions inevitably followed. Natural disasters were often interpreted as heaven's disapproval of poor governance. This wasn't superstition, it was a sophisticated theory of political legitimacy. The mandate of heaven, as it came to be known, established the principle that rulers derive their authority not from birth or conquest, but from moral worthiness. The impact of the Spring and Autumn Annals on Chinese civilization cannot be overstated. For over 2 millennia, it served as a foundational text for Chinese education, shaping how generations of scholars, officials, and rulers understood history, morality, and governance. Every educated person in traditional China was expected to know the Spring and Autumn Annals intimately. It was part of the core curriculum for the imperial examinations that determined who would serve in government. Its moral lessons were considered essential for anyone who hoped to participate in public life. The text's influence extended far beyond China's borders. Korean, Japanese, and Vietnamese scholars studied it as part of their classical education. Its principles of moral governance influenced political thought throughout East Asia. In the modern era, the Spring and Autumn Annals has faced new challenges and interpretations. As China grappled with Western ideas about history and science, traditional views of the text began to evolve. During the Cultural Revolution, classical texts like the Spring and Autumn Annals were dismissed as feudal superstition. But in recent decades, there's been renewed interest in understanding how these ancient works might speak to contemporary concerns about governance, ethics, and social responsibility. Modern scholars have also questioned traditional assumptions about authorship and dating. Archaeological discoveries have provided new insights into the period the annals describe, while textual analysis has revealed the complex process by which the text was compiled and transmitted. We now understand that the Spring and Autumn Annals is probably not the work of a single author, but rather the product of multiple generations of scholars and editors. This doesn't diminish its importance, it makes it more remarkable as a collective achievement of Chinese intellectual culture. What can a 2,500-year-old Chinese text teach us about our modern world? The Spring and Autumn Annals offers several timeless insights that remain remarkably relevant today. First, there's the principle that leaders are accountable for their actions, not just to their immediate supporters, but to history itself. The annals remind us that moral character in leadership has practical consequences. Second, the text demonstrates the power of language and narrative in shaping how we understand events. In our age of media manipulation and information warfare, the annals' careful attention to word choice and framing remains highly relevant. Finally, the Spring and Autumn Annals suggests that history is not just about recording what happened, but about learning from the past to make better decisions in the future. It's history as moral education. As we conclude our journey through the Spring and Autumn Annals, we return to the fundamental question: what makes this ancient text enduringly significant? Perhaps the answer lies in its title. Spring and autumn represents the complete cycle of seasons, birth and death, growth and decay, hope and sorrow. These are the eternal rhythms of human experience, as relevant today as they were in ancient Lu. The Spring and Autumn Annals teaches us that history is not just a collection of facts, but a moral conversation between past and present. Every generation must grapple with the eternal questions: how should we live? How should we govern? How do we create meaning from the chaos of existence? In our own turbulent age, as we face challenges that would be familiar to the ancient Chinese: political division, moral confusion, the struggle between traditional values and rapid change. The Spring and Autumn Annals offers not easy answers, but something perhaps more valuable, a model for thinking deeply about the relationship between power, responsibility, and moral purpose. The seasons continue their eternal cycle. Spring follows winter, autumn follows summer, and in this endless dance of renewal and reflection, the wisdom of the ages speaks to each new generation, calling us to be both students of history and authors of our own moral narrative.
Thanks for watching.